to the Be the Ultimate Assistant podcast with Bonnie and Vicki. Hello, everyone. I'm Vicki Sokol-Evans.
And I'm Bonnie Low-Kramen. Welcome.
Hey, Bonnie. How are you?
I'm awesome. How are you, Vic?
I'm just as awesome. I'm excited. I'm excited again for this episode, part 2. Do you want to get everyone up to speed?
Yeah, I was so honored to have Jeff Hoffman as our guest. And in the first episode, he shared with us the ideas about the relationship between executives, CEOs, and their assistants from the executive's point of view. And in part 2 of our time with Jeff, we're going to be talking about this relationship from the assistant's point of view. You know, in part 1, Jeff talked about his executive assistant, Lori. And Jeff, welcome back. And would you share with us Lori's story?
Absolutely. As I mentioned before, Lori was by far the sort of model of executive assistants for me, the most efficient and effective assistant that I've ever had. But I think a big piece of this was that I don't think Lori ever considered herself, quote, just an executive assistant, which we've all heard people say, hey, I'm just the assistant. Lori considered herself my business partner in a lot of ways. My other half and things that I couldn't get done. So I think the way that she looked at her role as not just an assistant, but as just, a partner in getting things done was really significant. She actually came from a customer service job. So she didn't have a long background as an executive assistant, but it was a career she was always interested in, to be exposed to more of the business and to learn different parts of the business. So when we had an opening, we had people with more executive assistant experience apply, and she came from a customer service job, but she just had this really go-getter type of attitude and interest and curiosity about a lot of different parts of the business that made me realize she was probably going to be very effective because she had a thirst for learning new things, not just knowing the minimum it takes to get by in any given day. Knowing how to do the things I asked her to do was one thing, but she wanted to learn things that she hadn't been asked for. So when she came over into that position and again wound up being just indispensable across the company. There were people that used to say, by the way, early on, some of the team members and other executives would kind of pretty much say, hey, she's just the assistant. Why is she getting involved in these things? Mm-hmm. And later, these were the very same people that said, that were thanking her and bringing her flowers, that she went above and beyond the call of duty to help them out and things they hadn't even asked for. So she was the model, extremely successful, and taught everybody, always took the time to teach our younger assistants that were moving up to the ranks that wanted to be an EA sometime. She worked with all the assistants in the company at different levels to teach them what they needed to know to grow and move forward. I think her lessons are still out there in a lot of places, even though unfortunately she isn't. I was away on a trip, and she and her sister were out shopping on a Saturday, and a drunk driver ran through a red light at like 80 miles an hour and hit her side of the car. And unfortunately, she did not survive her injuries, so it's been really tough living without her, but like I said, she left a huge impact on a lot of people, and we know she's still out there teaching.
Indeed, indeed. That's so unfortunate. We've heard so much about her, and we're always happy to hear you tell her story, and because it's a great way to honor her and that she's still teaching other people to this day. So thank you for sharing that, Jeff.
Absolutely.
So we love the fact that she didn't consider herself as just an assistant, and that's one of the misconceptions of the role. The things that we hear from assistants and their peers and around the world is that either A, they think of themselves as an assistant, just an assistant, or that others consider themselves their colleagues and coworkers that aren't in the position. So maybe other people in the organization think of them as just an assistant. We hear that over and over again. So tell us about the power perception, and what's your best advice for assistants who look at themselves as just an assistant, or what should they say to people who look at them as an assistant? Do you have any advice?
Yeah, definitely, because again, if you start thinking of yourself that way, and behaving that way, then of course that justifies everybody else saying that. And when people would say that to Lori, Lori would say, look, my job is whatever it takes to help make this company run smoothly. Mm-hmm. And when you say that, you elevate yourself. Because people would say, why are you working on that? You're just the assistant. And again, Lori would say, look, I'm here to do whatever it takes to help this company run smoothly. So whatever I can do, I'll do that. And that kind of defeated the argument, because who's going to argue the commitment to helping the company run smoothly? People would say, thanks. That's absolutely the right attitude. So I think it starts with assistants not seeing themselves that way. Assistants seeing that your job title is sort of irrelevant. Your real function is, again, whatever needs to get done and whatever it takes to make this place hum is what you do. And in fact, the other way, I think, to diffuse that is when people were saying that in kind of a condescending way to Lori, Lori would say, what can I help you with? And it kind of changed the argument, because she'd say, I'm sure there's something I can help you with as well. And it put them on the spot that, that they were sort of questioning her initiative, and then they were later welcoming it. So you have to start with thinking of yourself that way and giving yourself a chance to be perceived on a broader level.
Jeff, I'm curious, when other executives, managers would say to you, well, why is Lori in this meeting? She's just an assistant. What would you say back to them?
Yeah, because people ask that a lot. And I would tell them that our company, and again, I understand this is cultural, because it gave us a chance to address kind of a higher level cultural issue, which is that we are all about a culture of learning. And we'd like every employee in the company to have curiosity and want to learn more about what we do and how we do it. So Lori's presence in a meeting opened the door to say, your assistant or you are welcome to attend other meetings and learn and explore. And I would tell them that, her initiative to learn things beyond just the minimum is what is the difference between a good company and a great company. So it gave me a chance to support Lori and tell the rest of my team that that's the difference between good and great. Is, good is just doing what you had to get done and getting it done, which is fine. But great is saying, how can I expand beyond just the minimum and learn new things that I can do and new contributions that I can make going forward, instead of just doing what I was asked to do. When I got a chance to explain that that was her reason for being in the meeting, I think it changed people's opinion pretty significantly about her and her role.
Yeah, you bet. I mean, I had that experience working with Olympia Dukakis for 25 years, and people would say that to her in front of me, and I know that, Lori, it wasn't only important for the executives to hear your answer to that, but for Lori to hear it meant that it was so empowering for her. It had to be, because she felt so backed up and supported by you that it only gave her even more motivation to take initiative and to sit in on other things. I mean, it's a win-win situation to do what you did.
It definitely is, because again, like you said, it sort of boosted her confidence,
yes,
and gave her my support in the organization, but it reinforced to everybody, her included, that organization actually loves it when people want to learn more than just what they are required to know. So I think it was good all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I remember, Bonnie, when you and Olympia came to Austin for a fundraising event, and they had a screening of Steel Magnolias, and Olympia was doing a Q&A before the movie started. And somebody asked her a question, and she needed your help with the answer, just to support some information. And she said, well, let me ask my partner, Bonnie. And in front of a whole room and theater full of people, she considered you as her partner, which was great to see that. Like, that was great.
Yeah, there's a big difference between saying you work for somebody versus you work with somebody. And we never use the word boss. I'm not a fan of that word. So, there's this whole idea of perception is so critical.
Yeah. So I want to transition over to the idea of training. And Jeff, you mentioned in the previous episode about how important it is for executives to support the professional development of their assistant, encouraging them to build their skills and to grow. Many assistants are, like on the assistant side, but many are fearful of asking for training support because it's never been done before. There's typically just general training in the office, nothing specific to assistants. or they're worried about it not being approved, or maybe that they've overstepped their bounds. What is your advice to assistants who are interested in, growing and pursuing training on their own or getting the support?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and the answer is to make it goal-oriented, meaning that if you explain to your executive, I want this training for this reason. I want to be better able to support you in this area or that area. And you're specifically saying, here's what the benefit of the training to the organization. Because sometimes people feel almost selfish. I'm just asking for something, right? And that's why they're sometimes hesitant. And I know that training really tends to go, maybe in my case, I run tech companies. People will think, well, they really want to spend their training money on the programmers and the engineers. Well, again, what we want to do is spend our money, we meaning executives now, on whatever benefits the company. So what you need to do, instead of just saying, I want to take this training, again, which makes people a little hesitant, start with the goal. I want to be able to support, I'm going to make up an example. I know we're going to do a lot of trade shows and conferences this year, and that you're going to be involved in them. I'd like to better be able to support our marketing efforts at these conventions and conferences, since we're spending a lot of money. So I thought if I got this particular training in this area, I'd be more effective at doing that. That's a better answer than just saying, I want to get some training. So be goal-oriented. Start with the explanation of why this is good for the company, for you to improve your skills in that area. Then suggest how you improve those skills, which is through that training. And I think you'll get a much more effective response.
Love it, love it. It's understanding the perspective of the executive and their language and using their language. I love that. I think, Bonnie, you have a question kind of related to that.
Yeah, absolutely. We know that, Jeff, you've met with hundreds of leaders around the world. Can you pull the curtain back on an executive's mind? What should every EA and PA know about working with executives and leaders that you don't think is commonly known?
I think there's a couple of things. One of them that we talked about a lot is the radar piece. And what I mean by that is, when you're an executive, a CEO, and I've been that really my whole life, and as you mentioned, worked with a lot of high-level executives around the world, really what we're trying to get to is the well-oiled machine, meaning that everyone's looking at us, waiting for us to, quote, give the orders, or whatever words you want to use, tell people what to do and sort of organize and schedule things. But the truth is, what we'd really love to come home to is somebody saying, actually, we don't need you for anything because we figured it out. We knew what had to be done, what you probably wanted done, and we just did those things. So it's the anticipation. It's the radar that instead of coming home and wanting to give more orders, especially when you're on a long trip or an international trip and you're tired, we really want to come home and find out that people just figured it out, anticipated what needed to be done, got those things done. And I would love, like I just got home from a trip to Russia. The nice way to come home from Russia is to have my team say, why don't you go sleep off the jet lag, because we already did all the stuff we knew you were going to ask us as soon as you got home.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what we're hoping for.
And did that happen?
On this trip, it did, actually. My team was all over it. So the best days are the days where, it's counterintuitive to executives I know that have big egos, because they want to be important and they want everybody to need them. But the best days, honestly, are the days that no one seems to need you for anything, because they anticipated it and they got it under control.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of running a household. Like when you get home from work, here's a mom getting home from work, and then all of a sudden she gets home and dinner's made and everything's cleaned up and everything's taken care of. And so it's I don't know, just got this image.
I think that's
how wonderful that.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's a great example, because again, well, it might make you feel nice that everybody's lined up the door, that everybody has a mom issue. The truth is, it'd be nice if no one needed anything and kids were quietly doing their homework.
Right.
Dinner was on the table, like you said, that everything was in order, is actually really what you're looking for.
Yeah, and for me, I think what that reminded me of is, in my work with Olympia, that if I didn't hear from her, that meant everything was okay. That meant, if she didn't need anything, that meant I did anticipate everything. and that it was fine. So no news was good news for me, and that was a happy day. That was a good day for me.
No, I think that's absolutely right. I think probably the other thing from an executive viewpoint, and I hear this when I sit with other executives and we talk about our teams, and the word that I always use is radar, and what I mean by that is the ability to sort of sense things, not be told things. Meaning that from an EA, what we really want you to do, which we won't typically say, is just figure it out, make a call. Because people, you're the executive, you're getting paid the big bucks to make the big decisions because you have that experience. So, some people feel like for that reason alone you should be calling all those shots. But again, the most valuable EA is one that pays attention enough and listens and learns and asks questions enough that person can say, so now I come home from Russia and there's some quote urgent call, urgent by the caller standards. I love having an EA who knows enough about me and what I do in the company, what we care about, to say, look, I know that message says urgent, but it isn't. I'll call and tell them you just got home. Why don't you go home and go to sleep, and we'll deal with that tomorrow. Or the opposite, calling me in the car, I just got in the car from the airport, and saying, look, I know you said you were going to go home to sleep, but I honestly think you need to call this woman right now. So that level of radar, again, the reason an executive won't say it out loud is because they don't want someone to think, well, I'm just asking my assistant to make my decisions for me. You're not. We're a team, and we're processing the same information. It's just really valuable when your assistant, again, has that ability to sort of sense and knows enough about what's going on and you and what's important to be able to call those shots for you. That's so helpful to me and any executive when your assistant can do that. Say, worry about this or don't worry about that, instead of waiting for me to say which things I want to worry about right now.
That is such an important point you just made, Jeff. And what the critical piece here is that clearly you're giving permission to your people to do that. See, by definition, the role of an assistant, it's very easy for them to think of themselves of in support of, assisting, being behind the scenes. And so few assistants think of themselves as leaders, and because what you're painting is a leadership situation where they're having to take initiative and do get inside your head, and that requires an executive's buy-in for that they want that. Would you agree that not all executives want that?
Yeah, of course I agree. As a matter of fact, I got to be really honest with you now. There's more than one time in talking to EAs that I've told them, you just need to work for someone else. Because people have told me, here's the rules that our company and my executive enforces on me. And again, just being very candid, when I listen sometimes, if you work in an environment with an executive that clearly wants you to not speak until spoken to, what on earth are you doing there? You will never grow. You will never expand. You will never get a chance to spread your own wings and see how high you can fly if you're in an environment that doesn't support that. So
right.
I've definitely had assistants tell me that, but in listening to their explanations, literally the only thing I could think of is find an environment somewhere else where you actually have a chance to grow.
Mm-hmm. On the other hand, there's actually assistants who don't want to be in that leadership role either. They want to be more transactional. So while there's two types of leaders, some leaders want a strategic partner and some want someone that's going to be more transactional. There are also assistants who want to just be transactional. They want to work 8 to 5, 9 to 5, and make scheduling decisions and calendar and travel arrangements. And then there are some assistants who want to be like, Bonnie was a strategic partner with Olympia, and same thing with Lori. So
it comes down to finding that match.
Exactly.
And,
I think that's exactly right. That chemistry that works for both of you is the most important decision.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so Jeff, I have to. I know you've told this story over and over again at the conferences that I've seen you at, but it's my favorite story. It's the 300 story. Could you tell that 300 story for us?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And let me sort of preface this, because the reason this story was so important to me personally and why I share it is that it's about a commitment to excellence. No matter what you're trying to do in life, let's assume that all executive assistants want to do an excellent job. I can't imagine that there's people that would take their time to listen to a podcast when their goal in life is to just be average.
Right.
So assuming that excellence is what you're committed to, this was a lesson I learned about why some people achieve excellence and others don't. And so I'll just tell you the story. A close friend of mine is a professional boxer, a heavyweight boxer. It's Evander Holyfield. Boxing fans know when he knocked out Mike Tyson, but even non-boxing fans know when Mike Tyson bit his ear off. Evander's level of accomplishment is pretty well known out there, but he was training for a fight and doing this exercise that he does 300 a day of this exercise. Now, this is an exercise that most human beings could probably do twice at most. You do 2 repetitions, and he does 300 of it. So it's just insane that he even does this. But he was doing this exercise, and I was, spotting for safety and sort of counting. And when he got near the end, I was counting. I said 299, 300. And Evander said to me, Jeff, was that 299 or 300? And I said, Evander, you did 300 of them. And he said again, was it 299 or 300? And I said, it was 300. And without taking his eyes off me, he went back down to the ground, did one more repetition of this exercise. And he said, I think it was only 299. And now it's ridiculous. Again, most of humanity can only do this twice, and he's doing it 300 times every day. I mean, really? So when he said, I think it was only 299, and he did one more, I kind of rolled my eyes because it's a little bit ridiculous at this point. Evander saw me roll my eyes, and he said, Jeff, and I said, sir, and he said, look at me. And we had this sort of intense moment of eye contact, but I have to tell you, what he said next really changed my life. It was literally one of those epiphany moments. As he was rising up from the 300th, or maybe 301, he wanted to be sure, of this exercise, he said, the difference between 299 and 300 is the difference between heavyweight champion of the world and every other boxer. And when Evander said that, I just froze in my tracks. He literally got up and walked away, and I stood there silently. I stood there for probably 10 more minutes with goosebumps, trying to absorb this. And here's why. It's not a sports lesson. It's an everything in life lesson. And it's about being committed to being the best that you can be. And the message that I understood from that is if 299, which is almost 300, that's pretty darn close, is good enough for you today, and tomorrow 298 is good enough, and Friday 297 is good enough, and some other person somewhere else is doing 300, and they're just going to beat you. They're going to beat you for the opportunities. They're going to have the better career. So I started thinking about that, and I went back to my office, and I wrote on my whiteboard the number 299, and then I did the circle and the slash through it. No 299s in this office. And one night, I was finishing a proposal, and it was midnight. And I looked at the proposal, and I said, wow, this is really good. This is a good, solid proposal, and it's going to win this business. So I put the proposal down on my desk, grabbed my keys, and headed home at midnight. But as I was walking out, I walked past my own writing where I put no 299s, and I stopped, and I said, this proposal is a darn good proposal, but is it the best work I can do? Is it 299 or 300? And I realized, well, I did really good work. That's not the best work I can do. I actually could do a few things better in there. So I took my shoes off, rolled up my sleeves, poured some coffee, sat back down, and I stayed up until that was 300, until it was the best work that I can do. And I looked at it and said, I can't do any better. This is it. At that point, I went home. We sent that proposal into that customer. We got a letter from the customer. Not only did we win the business, but the customer said this is the single best proposal we've ever received from anybody in the market. And they said, in fact, we were so impressed that we did something we never do. And I said, what is that? And they said, we told our competitors that they should just buy from you guys. There's no contest. No one comes close. So we wound up getting 3 additional contracts out of that one proposal because we took the time to do the best we could do, to deliver 300, not 299. So the lesson in all this is whatever you do every day, the difference between, again, being a champion and whatever your job is as an assistant and just being good enough is looking at your work every day and saying, is that my 300? Did I do the best that I could do, or did I just do good enough? And when you take that attitude every day and say, good enough isn't good enough, I'm going to do 300 every single day, that's when amazing things happen to you and your life and your career. And I have followed that lesson ever since that day that I learned it.
I love it.
Me too. I got goosebumps, and I just put 299 with the circle and a cross through it on my dry erase board. I'm going to post a picture because I want that everywhere.
I think that's awesome.
Yay.
Me too. Oh my gosh. So inspirational, Jeff, and so important for assistants all over the world and leaders to hear these stories.
You know what we should do is, like, anyone listening to the podcast, this episode, take a picture of your 299 crossed out and do hashtag 300 and hashtag BTUA so that we can capture that and make sure we can see who around the world is inspired by this story.
That's a very cool idea.
Yeah.
And we can send it to Jeff at Twitter, at Speaker Jeff is the way we communicate with him, so you could let him know that his words have mattered and are making a difference.
Great. Oh my gosh, Jeff, amazing, amazing again. We could have you at every single episode, but I know you're you're a busy man. Where are you off to next?
The next big stop is Kenya, headed to Nairobi soon.
Oh wow.
Wow. Well, safe travels. We really do appreciate your time here. So, is there any closing comment or remarks that you want to make for our listeners?
Yes, I think one of the ones you guys really hit on already, which was, first of all, that chemistry. What are your goals as an EA? And therefore, based on those goals, what type of executive is the best fit for you? And so we covered one example, which is if, in fact, you really want to grow and learn and you don't want to do just the minimum of what you're asked to do, then you want to find yourself in an environment working for an executive that really supports learning and growth. And in that environment, you want to take those opportunities. You want to step up and say, I'd love to learn more about this topic so that I can be better at my job in this area. So think of yourself, again, assuming that's your goal, don't ever think of yourself just as the assistant. Think of yourself as a partner to your executive that's helping make the business run. And in that sense, don't be afraid to ask for relevant training or relevant opportunities that help you grow in that area, assuming that growth is your goal.
Super. We thank you so much, Jeff. This has been an amazing two-part series, and I know you're going to be helping people all over the world. So we're very grateful to you, and hopefully you'll come on again. Would you do that?
Absolutely, and thank you guys very much for having me.
Bonnie, do you have any closing remarks?
I'd like to conclude with a quote from Jeff Hoffman from the Behind Every Leader conference, where he said, "A good leader has a responsibility to help their staff achieve their dreams." And I'd like to add that in today's episode, it's clear that an assistant can be a critical piece, a critical partner in helping an executive, a CEO, achieve their dreams as well. So we invite your comments and questions to us, and we thank Jeff Hoffman so much again.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bonnie. And that concludes today's episode. We'd love your feedback, topic ideas, and questions. Visit the podcast page at betheultimateassistant.com. Thank you once again to our amazing guest, Jeff Hoffman, and to you for listening. We'll see you again next time. Bye, Bonnie.
Bye, Vicki.
Bye.
Bye, Jeff.
Thanks, guys. See you again.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.